Welcome to the SENDcast. My name is Dale Pickles. I'm the host of the SENDcast and the managing director of B Squared. If you are a new listener, then welcome to the SENDcast. The aim of the podcast is really simple. We want to reach lots of people and help everyone learn more about special educational needs and disability. Now, on this episode, I had a lot of guests. I had 5 professionals. I had Liz Day, Victoria Bagnall, Helen Ross, Fintan O'Regan and Pete Jarrett. And together, they are called the Compass Panel, and they've joined together in a kind of a shared vision. And in this episode, with all of those people, it was like herding kittens, we discussed charting a neuro-inclusive future and why the Compass Panel, that's the name of the group, believes systematic change starts with education. Now, the SENDcast is created by here at B Squared, and we have lots of different things, but today I'm going to mention EverSense, which is our evidence for learning and parental communication tool. It looks and feels like social media, so it's easy to understand and use, but it is really secure. You could do homeschool diaries, updates on progress, one-page profiles, reading diaries, capture pupil voice. It's a great way of bridging that and building those relationships between home and school. Visit the B Square website or click on the meeting link in the show notes to book a meeting with me to take you through EverSense and what it can do for you. Now, let's get on with that podcast. Liz Day, Victoria Bagnall, Helen Ross, Fintan O'Regan and Pete Jarrett. They have formed a panel together called the Compass Panel. It's a unique collective of 5 professionals united by a passion for neuro-inclusion. Liz uses her background as a teacher and sports coach to champion mental health and neurodiversity in schools, workplaces and communities. Victoria is a Cambridge-educated educator, neurodivergent executive function specialist who supports schools, workplaces and families to embrace neurodiversity, build executive function skills and foster inclusive environments. Fintan is one of the UK's leading behaviour and learning specialists, now working as an ADHD, neurodiversity and behaviour consultant, delivering CPD, training and consultancy to schools and education settings. Dr. Helen Ross is a qualified SEND teacher, former SENCO, former rocket scientist, turned independent researcher, specialist assessor and consultant, who focuses on dyslexia, speech, specific learning difficulties and neuro-inclusive neurodiversity policy and practice. I'm running out of air. And finally, Pete Jarrett is a specialist teacher, assessor and cognitive scientist whose work focuses on neurodiversity in the workplace and learning difficulties, particularly dyscalculia and barriers to mathematics learning. Welcome to the show, everyone.
Thank you, Dale. I'm not sure if you are crazy or just brave having us all on together, but we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, welcome.
Yeah, it's so wonderful to be here. Thank you so much for inviting us.
Welcome.
Thank you, Dale. It used to be you and me, and now it's you, me, and the gang.
Oh, it's a big gang.
I just think it's hilarious that you've got rocket scientists in there. If I was designing aeroplanes, I would never fly again.
Finally, it's me, isn't it? Yeah, what was I going to say? Oh, yeah, hi. Nice to see you all.
Something tells me, Helen, they wouldn't fly, but it'd be very clear signage and very inclusive.
Ouch. Not wrong.
Okay, so why are you all here? And let's start with the what and the why of the Compass Panel, and then we can move on to changing the education system and fixing everything.
So, yes, okay. Well, the Compass Panel, we came together earlier this year as 5 individuals, all with different experiences, lived experience, academic background, professional. We have all at some point in our lives been teachers alongside lots of other things. Not all of us have been rocket scientists though, yet. But growth mindset, we may still get there. We all have a real passion for inclusivity and true understanding around neurodiversity rather than it just being a buzzword and tick box exercise. So we feel like together we can help to guide things. We can't tell people what to do. But between all our different experiences, we can offer suggestions, ideas, examples of things that have worked and things that haven't worked, and hopefully sort of guide a path towards more neuro-inclusion, hence the Compass Panel.
Very nice. And I hear you're kind of corralling everyone, Liz.
No, not at all. No, maybe a little bit, maybe the teacher in me is a little bit like, right, everybody, this tomorrow.
It's a bit like plaiting fog though, isn't it? Because when you've got different people who there's a reason we're all self-employed doing our own thing, because we're very,
the word different is very important, isn't it? We are all different people in every way, shape and form, and that's beautiful.
And I think the aim is to be kind of, because we've got all such diverse experiences, the aim is to be sort of greater than the sum of our parts as well, because if you add us all together, that, I mean, you get a kind of crazy, let's be real. But as well, the knowledge we all share, like between us, we've got X number of years of, I don't know, and I don't really want to say, but like we've got a lot of years and a lot of experience of such different settings, and because we've all come from different ways in, I think it's a very powerful voice that would be brighter than like the bat light that goes up with Batman. Like we could have like a little compass into the clouds.
One of the things I found with the podcast is I talk to so many different people. Some like biology, some like physics. Some are dyscalculia specialists, some are dyslexia specialists, somebody's a yoga teacher. But actually what you hear from nearly everyone is the same underlying messages. That actually the system is not neuro-inclusive, and there's a lot of children struggling with school because it doesn't suit them. And everyone's saying it, and it's like, come on, when's everyone going to start listening? And it is, although, yes, I heard all these people on the podcast, each person saying the same basic message, it's still not being listened to.
I saw a thing on, I think it was, oh, gone, sorry.
But yeah, and I think the interesting thing, Dale, is you're absolutely right, and it's across the world, that situation as well. You know, that you can turn up in any school anywhere in the world, and there are people who are feeling that they don't belong just because they don't fit into the education system we've created. And I think, you know, the voices are getting louder, and I think the need for change is getting there. But the problem is that it is so complex that, you know, people just fiddle around the edges, and really we've just got to sort of nail the philosophy. And I think what Liz said about us hoping to guide is that we can, you know, just give an opportunity for, like, you know, people with a different view just to sort of say what needs to be said, not necessarily agreeing with each other, just so the conversation's out there.
Years ago, when I did my PhD, there was a person at last from the Czech Republic, and I remember, you know, you'd have a few socials together, and one of the times we were talking about when the Iron Curtain fell down, and it was really interesting because the way that played out in different countries, I don't know the detail. I'm human, and I was about 10, and I'm not very good at history, but it was very interesting to see Jana Krolova. I think she works in Edinburgh now. She's awesome person. And she talked about the sort of silent, gentle way it broke down in the Czech Republic and sort of Czechoslovakia as was. And she mentioned to me about people just saying things and sitting on the floor and not moving. Whereas in other countries there was war and it was very messy. So I think we need complete revolution of the entire education system, which actually, when you look at Wales and Scotland, it's kind of in some ways taken place, but it's been calm and gentle and respectful. And that's what we need, a total upheaval, but carefully and gently.
And it's interesting when people, you see it on all social media, when people say all teachers, what they really mean is all teachers in England, but they assume it is the same in Scotland and Wales. And I'm fortunate I work in England, Scotland and Wales, and we have frameworks. We see the different priorities in the curriculum. That in Scotland and Wales, there's three big areas: English, maths, health and well-being. They are the three cores. In both those countries, that is the priority, those three areas. Scotland have something in reading called enjoyment and choice. And I always think, no, we've got rid of that completely in England. None of that enjoyment or choice. No. But other things they do is really interesting. And again, if you think of teachers' work-life balance, it's completely different. And I think people need to not just look at England, but look elsewhere. And they say not things aren't great, but it's like take the best bits. Don't just go one bit's wrong in Scotland, assume it's all wrong. Actually going, what is working in Wales, and bring that over.
Yeah, and I think bringing it back to the compass analogy, certainly there's more talk, there's more of us with this shared passion to improve things and move things forward. But unless we actually start taking action, and when I say we, I probably really mean the people who have the power to do that, and it has to come from high up, because when people are being given a curriculum that doesn't work for most people, what are teachers in schools meant to do? It's really hard to fight that. So we need action from what everyone is saying, and this movement is becoming so much stronger. But like a compass, we could all stand around and look at a compass and decide, yeah, that's north. And then if we still stand there, nothing's going to happen. We actually need to take action. And again, as I say, we is people who have the power and the influence to do that. And it's so important that they draw on the right people who have got hands-on knowledge and experience, rather than just being the pen pushers who make the decisions.
Yeah, I'd just like to come in on that. I think maybe I differ a little bit in thinking about where the change comes from, because I spent a lot of time researching how change actually happens. And if you think about all of the diversity movements that we've experienced throughout history, especially looking back to the gay rights movement and how that happened, that didn't happen because a load of politicians woke up one morning and were, oh, I know what we'll do. We'll have equality in that area. That didn't happen because of that. It happened because brave people came out to their friends and to their families, and they really took action themselves. And I think in our country, teachers are so downtrodden that we've forgotten that our profession has a lot of power. And if we can coordinate ourselves to do the work that's right for children, then I think we can make a huge difference. And I was in Leeds on Monday, or I'm still actually in Leeds, but I was doing a training at an inset in Leeds on Monday, and the head of the trust there said, nobody's coming to help us. It's up to us to deliver the education these young people need. And I was like, yes, this is what needs to happen, because the government don't get it. They don't see what's happening on the ground. And I do believe that the change comes from teachers and from schools that are brave and courageous to do the things that children need. It's in their power to do that. They don't have to follow the recommendations of the government.
I think what's interesting about this is that we talk about, change having to be enabled by these change makers, and I absolutely agree with Victoria. And I think throughout history, as she says, when there is momentum from enough people, it becomes compelling. But I think one of the things that it's quite hard to communicate is that, and perhaps where we go wrong is that we spend so much time trying so many solutions, trying to fix a complex system from within. But actually, in many ways, if you can bring this back to some very simple concepts of observation, identifying what somebody needs, of communicating in every direction in an empathetic, a rational, evidence-based, way. And then just putting simple things in place. And that, some people need more than simple things, but just recognizing that people process information at a different speed. So when they're doing a times tables test, the fact that somebody takes slightly longer doesn't make them worse at maths. So focus on the solutions that are simple, and organic change from the people on the ground can make it easier.
I'd just like to concur with everything and people have said before. We all work sort of in isolation, and you're definitely more coherent and powerful as a team. And I think if you look back, because I think we said before, the only reason we have dyslexia and autism the way they are now, it didn't come from politicians. It always came from groups of people, usually parents actually, who were passionate about these issues for their children. They got together, they lobbied, they got change taking place. And I think that's really what I think as 5 individuals are trying to do in order to do that. Let's take on your point about talking about, when we talk about education in England, and we do tend to do that, and there's an assumption that what we do in England is what we do everywhere, and and let's face it, our educational system is seemingly, other people seem to like it across the world and other parts of the world, so it's not all bad. But one of the things I've always been, we talk about, for our children, developmental differences, which means that they're not at the same stage as their age, and therefore this race to get to 16 to actually narrow to 3 subjects, when you've got people who are 2 or 3 years developmentally behind, we're definitely going to disenfranchise people by doing that. And when you talk about Scotland, I mean, they don't, they all do a number of subjects up to 18. They do the highers. So there's a completely different system in Scotland. It is also in Ireland, by the way, where, and then it is in France, isn't everywhere else. But this idea about, about going to GCSEs, or narrowing and doing at 16, so you've got to be done by then to do whatever you want to do, whether it's physics or biology. It's going to you just don't get a chance of doing it elsewhere. And
I'm just
so
going
I
to
think
the biology physics question comes from a discussion we had before we started recording. I like physics, not biology.
Okay. And I just want to make a point. I just want to make a point. My son is actually a rocket scientist, just to make that point.
Fair play.
Sorry.
Can I just stand up for the biologists of the world very quickly? It's an excellent subject. And
I'm not a fan of any science, really, so can we just move on from science? Sorry. Actually, my master's is in science, so I shouldn't say that. Anyway, going back to what's being said, I totally agree, and I think all of us know and have demonstrated ourselves how a neuro-inclusive approach in schools makes such a big difference. I still strongly believe it's got to come from a curriculum change, because all the time, teachers in state schools who are being judged on how they meet the curriculum, how they teach to the test. Otherwise, we get this kind of animosity as well, that parents think teachers don't want to accommodate their children. Teachers absolutely do. But what are they meant to do when they've got Ofsted coming in and judging them on how well they teach the curriculum, which I think a lot of us would agree there are parts of the curriculum that are not that important and other things are more important. So I think we have got to get this balance of, yes, we need to drive it in schools, and there's so much we can all do, and neuro-inclusive teaching is huge for everyone, but we also need a big change.
I'm just going to jump in here. Sorry, Helen.
Sorry.
So at the time of recording, we are recording this on the day of release of the curriculum and assessment review. So I've literally had 10 minutes to skim read it and read a short summary. It's all we've had. So we've not, and when this is going out, it's already happened, and you're going, why aren't you not talking about this? It's the way we do things, so we record and release later. And it's the curriculum assessment review is a really interesting thing, because if you look at kind of that churn in teachers every year, how many come in and how many go out, actually teachers aren't staying for very long. It may be 5, 6, 7, 8 years on average, which means the entirety of the workforce have only ever really worked under one curriculum, and they see that this is the way it has to be. And whereas I would say most of you, with your experience, have used previous curriculums, and it's not only the curriculum change, society changes, but things can be done differently. That the current curriculum is overloaded, and one of the things they have recommended is reducing the breadth and shallowness to make a focus on more depth in certain areas. So we have no idea what that's actually going to look like. The government's done a response, but actually what that's going to look, we don't know. But for me, that is a really big thing where I think teachers are just used to having to get through a curriculum. They're being pushed through the curriculum, and they're not actually having time to actually enjoy what they're doing, help the children and young people enjoy their subjects and love biology or love physics. It's going to keep coming about that joke. Or any other non-science subject. EBAC's going, which I think is great, because it means that you don't have to do that history or geography or a language if that's not interest to you. So there are a couple of small signals which mean that will be a big change, but there's lots of other things which we don't know what it will actually look like just from a pure recommendation. Sorry for jumping in, Helen.
No, please don't apologise. The thing that really bugs me around this, it is still grounded in the Victorian notion that the only route to success is school, college. Sorry, let's get this right. The correct pre-prep, the right prep, a good senior school, and then on to daddy's law firm maybe for a year, and then on to the right university. And it's the notion of being well read versus well informed. It is so class-based. It is so archaic. My little boy, now he's got 2 PhDs for parents. We're not daft in our house. Well, we're silly, but we're not stupid. Daniel wants to be a tree surgeon. Do you know what, kid? Crack on. Because if you're a tree surgeon, at the moment he's 6. But how is a tree surgeon not a skilled professional? How are they not highly valuable? You can't outsource tree surgery. And I think until we address the fact that you can be a really successful person because you can be happy and earn a good living doing something gainful outside of only going to uni. And I think that's where we're looking at places like Germany, the Netherlands, Austria to some extent, France to some extent, they have very defined pathways. Now, I'm going to bring it back because Fintan spoke about at 16 we choose. In Germany, you're 10 or 11. In Holland, you choose at 14. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But at 14, most kids know if at that stage of life they like hitting things or they like reading things. And will that change? I don't know. So we need to have really solid pathways that acknowledge that some people don't want to go to university, and that is okay. And we're just not there.
One thing I like about in Germany, they have a again, if I say to someone in the UK, you are academic, you are more vocational, you are more technical, in this country, that's an insult. In Germany,
the German tripartite system is based on the old British tripartite, but it was based on the old British tripartite system that was never valued and funded properly.
So in Germany, you're not being told, although you like hitting things or you like doing the practical stuff, it's frowned upon, so you're not allowed to. Okay. I don't like any of them, but that's what I've got to. We end up in that situation where loads of people going to university because it's a conveyor belt you have to be on, rather than have an opportunity to get off and going, I love doing this, and that's what I'm good at.
You go to a sort of Fachhochschule, which is like a subject higher institution, and they're so good.
I think it comes back to developing a love of learning and an ability to learn. So actually, it doesn't matter if you've when you specialise, as long as you've built up the skills you need to be able to go and learn later on. So, I mean, I've had various different career paths, and I know whatever my latest interest is, I can use my skills to find out about those things and develop understanding. But so often we're turning off children and young people from learning because learning isn't fun. It's rote learning. It's doing what they don't want to do. That then they think, well, once I leave school, I'm never going to learn again. Well, actually, all of us, regardless of what industry, profession, whatever you want to call it, we go into, are always learning every single day. And if we develop children with growth mindsets, they can go on and learn whatever they want at whatever age, and that's the value.
Yeah, all of that.
Yeah. I just wanted to just talk about self-determinist theory of education and of education philosophy, and looking at kind of the 3 core needs of people in their development, and that's competence, autonomy, and relatedness. And just to talk, just to kind of expand on what you're saying there, Liz, we have so little autonomy in our education system. There is no chance for children to have control over their learning until perhaps they get to choosing their GCSE options. But to be honest, now that's just so narrow. There's a very, very few, and most schools are very dictatorial about what they can do. They have no choice and then they get to A levels, and maybe they can go off and do vocational courses, etc. But it's so narrow of what they're allowed to choose from. And then also this relatedness piece, we know that I think it's 70% of young people don't feel like they belong in school every day. 70%, and that's the Department for Education statistics. So we're not creating the environment in our schools for learning to happen, the research, evidence-based environments for learning. And I think we just need to step back and say, okay, yes, curriculum is important, all the rest of it, but actually let's design a system for humans, because what we're doing right now is we have a system for factory workers, and we're not all factory workers anymore. And that's where we think we need to change.
Oh, you're not wrong.
And I was actually going to say exactly what Victoria's just said about belonging and how important belonging is as part of it. And I was going to make it, I mean, I've got so much going through my head at the moment. This is such an interesting discussion, but I was going to track back to talking about tree surgery and what a fantastic job for an awful lot of people with neurodiversity. It's really specialized, it's really skillful. There's an element of danger that you have to, engage with in doing it. The depth of learning that you can engage with, both in terms of what you learn, in terms of the practical side of it, but in terms of the technical, scientific side of it as well. And it just gives people reward that, as Victoria's system narrows down. But I just want to chuck a thought in there that I think I've been reflecting on quite recently myself. Sometimes are not too good. I remember that, I've noticed that, for example, if we go back to 2013 and the SEND Code of Practice, I thought at the time, oh, this is actually quite a good document. Where everything seems to go wrong throughout the world is then the application of these well-written documents.
Yeah.
And it's wrong to pick on the teachers for the application of this, because I think the teachers are conditioned by the environment they work in to behave in the way that they do. But if we also not only gave agency to the children, but gave autonomy to the teachers to create learning and to include people in ways, and I was very lucky because I'm really old, go to school in the 60s and 70s when we probably were given more chance to go out in the woods on our own orienteering, which, think about the risk assessment for that now. But I think so much of it comes down to actually also allowing the teachers to use their natural ability and not just tick boxes.
Can I say, going back to this, I think what we're all alluding to is Ken Robinson's really changing the paradigm, which is 20 years now. And, and it's just such a shame that he passed away too early, because I think his voice was very influential. And unfortunately, there's been nothing really that I've seen since then really to carry on that message or that torch. So I think, there's things, and I do think it does start in primary school. This idea of head down, listen to me. I've got a niece who's when she was 7 or 8, she came across from the US, and I wrote, she once liked the song on the radio, and I wrote it out for her, and she couldn't read it as well, but I can tell you what she can do. She can sell you a used car, because what they do in the US is they spend that much more time on articulation. It's not just show and tell, it's explaining, and that is a major skill that we are not advancing in the UK. We are definitely head down, listen to me, do this, do the other. And that is a skill that I think is so vital for this next generation.
Right. Yeah.
So I just think we've got to do that, really.
I think a big part of all of what we're saying, which encompasses flexibility, trusting teachers, everything else, comes back to something that I'm constantly banging on about, because since I've discovered it, I've realized it's what I was looking for my whole life. That's psychological safety. It was a phrase coined by Amy Edmondson. And it's not about being nicey nice and everyone agreeing with each other. Far from it. It's about challenging. It's about asking questions. I vividly remember asking a question in school because I didn't understand something. It was to do with the way that centuries work. And now it makes sense to me. But I was treated by that teacher as if I was challenging her knowledge. Of course I wasn't. I knew she was right, but I didn't understand it. And how many of us just accept things if we don't understand it? We don't. So there needs to be that feeling of psychological safety so that teachers can challenge things within school. Children can challenge things. It's an open environment where there's that opportunity for questions and discussions, rather than teaching to the test, haven't got time to talk you through why this is. You just need to know that a fronted adverbial is important to know. It's Psychological safety, so important.
So one of the things listening to you all talking is a thing which has been bugging me for ages, and it just knowledge versus skills. We're very much in a world of knowledge, and going back to it's not the teachers, it's the system. Is knowledge is easy to assess. Does someone know when William Shakespeare was born? Yes, well done, we've done our job. Actually, what we want is lifelong learners. I don't know either, Helen.
Stratford.
18, 17, 16. I'm not even know what century. I have no idea.
The olden days.
Olden days, black and white. Photos, drawings, not photos, all that sort of stuff. But that focus on knowledge, and even in the curriculum review, they said we still want a knowledge-based curriculum. And then it talked for SEN how it would be scaffolded down. I'm going, sorry, what's the scaffolded down version of not knowing his date of birth? Is it knowing someone else's year of birth? Or is it knowing William Shakespeare? No, I hate
Knowing how
knowledge-based.
to find. It's the snobbery. It's the snobbery of what
Helen,
learning.
you didn't put your hand up. You're not in the list. You're not in the list.
No, fine. No, but it's snobbery. It's snobbery as to what is valued as knowledge, and it's a philosophical question.
So again, listening to everything you're saying about belonging, about learning, about all those things, to me, children not engaging, it's because you have to learn knowledge you do not care about. And actually, if I could learn something about my culture, the area of country I live, if I could do coursework or a project on something that interests me and show all the skills that you've taught me and demonstrate them, that would be amazing.
Yeah, it would be so fantastic. And I just want to pull on all of that and the psychological safety piece, because I think that we're getting to the key crux of it here, is that most of our neurodivergent children do not feel psychologically safe in school. It is an unsafe place for them. And from a safeguarding perspective, it is urgent that we work to change this. And we can see this because the numbers, I mean, we've got as we're recording, they're doing this amazing silent protest with the shoes outside the councils of children who are not attending full-time education because they've been let down by the system. There's all this harm that's taking place in our system. And I think when we can really urgently look at that in terms of a safeguarding perspective, it shifts the lens quite a lot. We need to create environments that are psychologically safe for everyone, and then they're inclusive. And that means about being human and celebrating the fact that we're different, celebrating the fact that we make mistakes, celebrating the fact we all learn differently, behave differently, that we can all experience distress, and that can manifest itself as behavior challenges. But actually we need to humanize our approach so that teachers are really aware of how the brain learns and develops and self-regulates, and can support young people to develop self-regulation skills through co-regulation so that they can leave school with those self-regulation skills so that they can go into society and contribute in a way that's not emotionally driven, but is more rational, logical, and supportive of the whole society and community as a whole.
Absolutely, isn't that just
Not
absolutely the right thing? I just want to sort of stress the point that I think knowledge and understanding are two very different things.
Yes.
So we have a curriculum that's focused on knowledge. People don't understand necessarily what they're using that knowledge for, or they can't apply it. And actually, I've been doing quite a lot of work recently on this idea of sort of understanding and foundations. It's easier with mathematics to some extent, because I'm not quite sure what the foundations of Shakespeare are. I presume they're in Stratford-on-Avon somewhere. But
on the high street.
In the high street, yeah, just by Primark. But we've just described our frustration with a system in which all the knowledge is there, but I think it would be arguable that nobody really understands how really to make it work. So we've written something, we just can't apply that. And actually, we're also talking then about students not being able to do that in the classroom because they are conditioned to return the knowledge that they've been given, but they don't necessarily have understanding. And I think one of the sad things about this is that they may take a different route to doing it. And I'm speaking about myself in this to some extent, as somebody with dyslexia and ADHD. I'm not very good at feeding back knowledge, but given something that I'm really interested in, I will understand it. And it's when we look at what we need in the modern workplace, we don't want people that can repeat stuff. We need people that can problem spot. We need that people can problem solve. People need to understand what they're doing. So we need to change the word knowledge to understanding, I think.
Yeah, I've got a fantastic example of this from someone who left school 2 years ago. She happens to be my daughter, so she's amazing. She's really interesting, actually, as you would expect again from being my daughter, but she's very typically academic. So left school with all A's at A levels, but she's not typically traditional in that she didn't want to just follow that path and go to university. She's been traveling for a couple of years. She's still traveling, and she's now started a university degree with Open University while she's studying.
Wow.
She said to me the other day, Mum, with my A levels, I knew I could just learn all the information, regurgitate it, and get grades. She's always understood what a question is asking you. Whereas I was saying, my son and I, we're not, for some reason, we're not very good at that. I'm just like, tell me what you want me to write, and I'll write it. Don't hide it in some cryptic question. But she can do that. But she said, with my degree, and she's studying environmental studies, she's like, I don't want to just regurgitate. I want to be able to join in with discussions. I want to understand it. I don't just want the knowledge. And I was like, yes, that is exactly what it's about. You shouldn't be encouraging people just to have knowledge that they can't apply. So as you were saying that, Pete, I just thought that was a perfect example of a young person seeing for themselves that that's what we need.
I think it's really important to acknowledge then. I know we're kind of joking around sort of physics, biology, and all the rest of it, but I bring it back. I did mechanical engineering. So my first degree was mechanical engineering. I enjoyed hitting things. I could do physics. I could have done a maths degree. I'm not creative in that respect. But for me, I've got math and physics in my head, but all by itself, what do we do with it? My husband's his degree and PhD are organic chemistry. That's all I can tell you. Very theoretical. We need there's this kind of, there needs to be knowledge, and I will, that is a hill I will die on. We need knowledge. But if we have the elephant of knowledge that we're all looking at from different angles, looking at its bottom is very different from looking at its trunk and its face. You need the different perspectives. You need the different people with different skill sets to look at the problem, to look at the knowledge and interpret it differently and take their different perspectives. Now, I've ended up in sociology, which is a bit random. But my sociology, you're talking about kind of systemic versus individual. And for me, the interaction between the two is why we're in the pickle we're in at the moment, or lack of interaction between the two. So it's the application and the sharing of knowledge. How is it shared? What do we do? What's valued as knowledge and what's valued as understanding? And it's so much. I used to make fun of sociology when I was doing engineering. A lot of humble pie has been consumed subsequently because it's quite hard. But it's the philosophy of what is valued in society and how is success defined. And it is, while you've got a kind of hegemonic group of people that have always been in the control of systems, it's not going to change. So we do need such an upheaval, gently and carefully and respectfully, but there does need to be a wholesale change. It's really important.
I mean, we go back to Ken Robinson again, and he makes that point. He says most of our most talented people are told they're not, because of the way in which our system is geared towards it. And I think one thing we need to do very practically is to really, before they leave primary, they've just got to know how to learn as opposed to what to learn. Because the jump then to secondary is so big. It's the biggest jump they ever make, I think, from primary to secondary. Particularly if you developmentally, again, if you're 2 or 3 years delayed on your stage of age issue. And I think it also goes back to something that Victoria was saying about, it won't be any surprise to you. I do think that some children are truly bored in school, and if you're bored, then you start to sort of disenfranchise again, and it won't surprise you again that it's for me, it's all not about behavior, it's mood. And when you get mood right, you get motivation. And then Victoria, you were alluding to those, I think Dan Pink's thing on Drive, where it was competence, autonomy and mastery. Those are the things that motivate people. And whether or not, and I agree with the Germanic, the thing about going academic versus vocational, we do not value that, and we really don't. And children are told that, really. And I think just one last thing I'd like to say is we need to also value what it is they know. And I remember doing we're going to hit the science thing here again one more time. I remember doing I remember doing something on acids and bases as a test for the students to do, and what is an acid and some of that. And I said, what is a base? And one of the kids said, it's the bottom of the building. Well, that's not wrong. It's the question. The question is open ended. So I gave him. It was 2 marks for whichever it was. I gave him 2 marks because it wasn't the wrong answer. It was the wrong question. And I think that in a way sums it up a little bit. We're asking them we're giving them the wrong questions to do. And what we should do is value their response to whatever you call it, curriculum or content, knowledge, whatever you call it. But we need to teach them how to learn as opposed to what to learn.
And to add to that, how to learn and inspire them with wanting to learn.
Yes.
Because if you don't want to learn, that's half the battle, isn't it? We all know, we've all said ourselves, if it's something we're interested in, we will learn and become really knowledgeable about it. If it's something that doesn't interest me, and there's no reason for me to learn it, it's never going to go into my head, it's just, and also talking about that jump from primary to secondary, there's got to be more cohesion between the two. I've worked in primary schools and secondary schools and further education, and seeing the priorities in primary school and what they think they need to prepare children for when they go to secondary school, and then seeing what they actually need in secondary school are two completely different. And that's not the fault of the teachers. Again, it's what they're being told to do. But actually, there's such a big jump. And this, again, I bang on about fronted adverbials because they annoy me. But
I'm going to Google it. I don't know what it is.
A child in year 6 who knows all about fronted adverbials for SATs. And again, I'm going back to an example with my own daughter, actually. SATs, smashed it. She knew about fronted adverbials. She taught me about it so I could help children I was supporting. 2 years later, at her secondary school, excelling there, I mentioned something about fronted adverbials. She said, what are they? I've never heard of them. What is the point of drumming that into someone for them then to have no idea about it? Why don't we spend the primary years, as Finn said, learning how to learn, understanding, having that capability, and enjoying learning. It's got to be interesting, and it can be interesting, even if it's a subject you're not particularly fascinated by. It can become interesting by the way it's taught.
Yeah.
Surprisingly, I learned about fronted adverbials when I was about in my late 30s because of my children. And for
I've just
those who are
Googled
listening, that was a demonstration of a fronted adverbial, starting a sentence with the word surprisingly. There we go.
Interestingly, I speak 5 languages as well, and I've just had to Google that, and I speak fluent French, Spanish, and German.
Do you not past progressive tenses?
I was doing.
Instead of I ran for the bus, I was running for the bus. Lovely. It can make reading much more interesting, but having to know them and name them, again, that's a knowledge. The skill or understanding is how you use them. And one of the things, earlier this year, we had the Children's Commissioner's Report came out in September, earlier this year for us at the time of recording. And there were 4 words in there which I thought are absolutely key, and I've not seen anyone mention them. It was 4 words, and those 4 words, it makes a really horrible acronym, were attend, engage, attain, excel. Horrible acronym.
I just wrote it down.
But attend, no one's going to attend unless they're engaged, which touches what on Fintan's, that mood. Yeah, if you want to learn, it's got to be engaging. If it's engaging, children are going to attend. That's quite simple. It's engaging for them, not this is what an engaging lesson, its government says so. It's no, what's engaging to your children? What's engaging to those children in front of you? You make that learning engaging, those children will attend. If they're engaging, they're going to retain. Yeah? They're going to learn something. They might love physics, they might love chemistry, they might love sociology. We'll add that one in now. And then hopefully if you keep that engagement going, and again, spending a bit of time and loving that subject, you will excel. But it's all about that engagement. It's all about, actually, is my lesson engaging? And the answer probably in secondary, no, it's not. But it's nothing to do with your choice. It is the curriculum, the time frame, all the constraints put on you make that not engaging, which means the children aren't engaged. They're not behaving well in class because they're dysregulated, they're bored. They're not going to school because why? Where's it going? And I think Victoria later on that related part. And I will learn nothing about chemistry or biology or physics unless I have a reason to.
I mean, I'm not going to sort of. I think this other thing we have to sort of be aware of, and I think is, and it sounds like we're going back again, back to old ground over science and stuff, but the tech that is out there, we know that has been enormously beneficial for neurodivergent children in supporting them in some of the skills they don't have. But what we've got to be careful of is we lose the sort of like the practical elements of what you do. I cannot tell you that any student I've ever taught is not amazed when hydrogen pops, you know, out of a test tube. You know, that is just what you go to school for. And those some of those practical experiences that they were getting, not, you know, in all sorts of things, I think of to a certain extent being replaced by the whiteboard, you know, and as much as it's great to see things on that, and we said before, tech gives lots of advantages to people. We've got to get that practical element of life experiences into learning, and I do think. Risk assessments apart and things, it's they all say risk and return. I think if you don't risk something, you won't get the return, and I just think we need to be getting that. And again, going back to your idea about being a tree surgeon, you know, this is what we want to do. We want to get people to love what it is they do in terms of long-term prospects, and you know,
and having felled 5 out of 6 trees in our garden, we then hired a tree surgeon.
A lot of. Can I make one point? Lots of biology in tree surgery. Sort of like area.
We've also got a lot of physics when you're using a chainsaw. Physics and chainsaws are very sort of interrelated.
But that's why the Welsh and the Scottish curriculums are so good, because they're about life skills and they are broad and they build those links, and that's understanding and knowledge combined.
What's interesting, one little bit on the Scottish and Welsh curriculum, the whole organisation of the curriculum is you have science and technologies. You do not have all these separate subjects. And they talk about curiosity, discovery, actually, whatever it is you're doing, whether you're doing a science, a geography, history, resistive materials, or CDT, whatever it's called this year.
Hitting stuff.
Hitting stuff, but it is that discovery. Hang on, what happens when I do this? What can I do with this? That's what you want. Is you want someone, because again, if we talk about knowledge, and I remember Joanna Grace told me a lovely thing of she had like a circle of all the world's knowledge, yeah, and to get a PhD, you have to go beyond it. You have to kind of take it outside of that world. So if you've got a PhD, what you've learned, kind of no one else has learnt. So again. Somebody who's pointing to herself who might be called Doctor.
Spells drop.
I think it's a Weetabix token thing with Helen. She's so many Weetabix tokens over the years. She got a doctorate or something. But it is, and that's the thing. So the passion, the engagement, the wanting to, the skills built on the knowledge, all of that came together to get the PhD. Not rote learning, not learning how to write the specific way of answering when was Shakespeare born in the correct words with the correct, what are the implications, or compare or analyze. They are very different questions for your GCSEs, and you've got to include certain keywords. The moment you finish that GCSE, all that stuff you've learned is completely useless because it's all in isolation. So as Pete said, it's not about understanding, it's about a knowledge for an exam to pass an exam. It's not about then using that and transferring that to anything else because you've got nothing to transfer because you can only write a sentence in a very specific way to pass a GCSE. Rant over.
Going back to what Finn said about the importance of keeping that exciting part of science, just to add in another real life example, because I always love adding these in. But as I mentioned earlier, I have never seen myself as a scientist. Science I found really hard at school. And actually, I'm with Helen on it was physics that I really loved. And I think the reason I loved it was because we did more exciting experiments, we saw things.
You hit stuff.
And my GCSE, it was a mixture. There was an element of practical, which was fantastic. And for that part of it, we had to carry out our own experiments and recreate things. And I remember there was one day where my physics teacher actually had to get the technician in. It was something to do with magnets. I wish I could explain it better, but it's gone now. But because my physics teacher thought I'd discovered a whole new phenomena, the technician actually explained it and got through it. But that really excited me and drove me on. And then in my practical part of my GCSE, I got 100%. Overall, I just scraped a pass because I couldn't do the written stuff very well. So if that element wasn't there, physics would have been absolutely horrendous for me. It's so important that we have the exciting, the explosions, all that kind of side of it to excite people and really bring it to life.
The bit of Andy's PhD, Andy, my husband, the bit of his PhD that I think has had the most impact, and this is because, for the record, I showed him how to do this. He had a collaboration with our Camwally, which is a small dairy farm just outside of Sheffield at Dunworth, and they've been on Mr. Tumble, so they're famous. Eddie, the chap who is in charge of that, ended up, and I don't know how the discussion came up, but a lot of it was schools outreach, and Andy's done science comms over time. He has a world record for making ice cream with liquid nitrogen in 10.34 seconds. We got free ice cream at our wedding. They had the most wonderful collaboration. The sort of steam and smoke, the vapors that came off, the kind of the excitement felt in that moment at that food festival on the 10th of June, whenever it was palpable. Andy dined out on that at 15 years on. He's still got the record because I showed him. But it's the excitement of crash bang wallop. And kids need that crash bang wallop, or whether it's metaphysical, metaphorical, they need to see it, live it, learn it. It's so important.
Just my first thing of science at secondary school was going to an open evening, and they had the Van de Graaff generator out.
I love that.
Those sorts of things, and again, you could, as Fintan said, you could watch it on a screen. Look what happens when you do this. No, relating it to something you're feeling, not just reading it, actually feeling it in your body, watching someone else is phenomenal. And again, Liz, your explanation of that kind of, you found something new in science, you'd gone past the teacher's learning and the teacher was fascinated, which made you feel amazing. And it's that, rather than everything you're going to learn is whatever your child you're learning at this age across the whole country is learning this week, and you're going to learn this. Wow, that's fun. How about I get to do my own learning? How about I use the stuff and I get to try and go in a slightly different way and learn something and find something out that others haven't, and I can share it with everyone else, because again, the best way to learn is often through sharing and teaching others.
And as much as we're kind of focusing tiny on science, we've got to remember the arts, and we're not promoting, we're not promoting music, we're not promoting drama, we're not promoting dance. I mean, I always love that final scene in Billy Elliot where he turns up and he's got that, he's so fantastic, the way he emerges, and the father's in the audience, and the emotion on the father's face is just to people think. And there's a boy whose dad wanted him to box, and what did he want to do? He wanted to dance. And that's what we should be doing as well. We should be allowing them to dance, as well as, some of the other things as well. So that's the mission. That's the sort of the mission, really.
So that's one good thing out of the curriculum assessment review is to get rid of the EBAC, which gets away from, you have to do English, maths, science, well, I think you still have to do those three, but you have to do a language and you have to do a humanities. If that's not your thing, then you get to do what's your thing. And to me, that again encourages all those things. You know what? I love dancing. You know what? I like making things. I like doing things with my hand. I'm creative. I like designing things. I like solving problems. I want to do those subjects. That's what you go and do.
Yeah.
And
Can I just say, sorry, Liz.
As I taught dance in primary schools and developed like a plan to go on beyond me being there. And one of the things that was key to me was that it wasn't just about dance. It was about a love for physical activity, the understanding of why we have physical activity. And I think my favourite part, and probably also the children, was in year 6, we did the hacker. So they learned about a different culture. They learned behind it. They could articulate things so well. And children who in a classroom maybe couldn't write down much at all had this amazing knowledge and understanding and could talk about things far wider and far more interesting that then engage them in other things. And similarly with music and the beat, I know in learning spellings and reading, like there's research out there about drums and how drumming helps. It's brilliant. We need
getting down with it.
All of that rather than thinking reading and writing has got to be sat at a table with a pen and paper.
I was just going to say, because I've kept it until near the end just to drop this in, but I'm currently in India at the moment. I watched an assembly in a school yesterday about inclusion and disability. And one of the things I love about here is that gender is not, if you're dancing, gender is irrelevant. And it doesn't matter whether you're the best cricket player or the best rugby player or whatever, alongside the best dancer. And that feeling of like the joy that you see and the stories that you can tell through creativity. And it also helps make the links back to creativity as well. And I had to say, just because I'm an old man and Finn might be the only other person in the room, but Van der Graaf Generator were an absolutely excellent progressive rock band in the 1970s as well. So Van der Graaf Generator is just foundational.
I am going to Google that as well.
I concur, and not many people would know that, but they were very, very good. Yeah, they were in that period of time with quite a lot of those progressive rock bands, weren't they, Pete? Yeah,
Peter Hamill.
Yeah.
Cool. So I'm going to wrap it up. Is there anything anyone wants to add before we wrap it up? Liz?
Funnily enough, I've got more to say. Just one thing which we don't need to dwell on, but is another big thing. I am so upset and concerned about this idea of adding in more testing and having testing in year 8 for reading. How is testing our year 8 children going to help them to love reading? We should train our teachers and trust our teachers to be able to understand reading development and pass that on and be able to assess it within their head. They don't need to write down. They can in their head see where a child's at and what's lacking if they're properly trained.
Yes.
Spend money on that rather than on tests to make more children feel like they're a failure because they haven't passed their reading test at year 8. So all that's going to do is encourage them not to learn to read because they've already failed and probably push them towards the
bottom end of GCSEs.
So let's not test and make it about passing and failing. Let's make it about understanding and teachers the knowledge and the power to be able to teach reading properly and assess it without it having to be another test. Sorry, that was a real rant, but I had to get that in.
Totally agree, Liz. Totally agree.
Totally agree. And what I would say is you read for a reason. You either read for enjoyment, you read to learn, you read to get another opinion. But what opportunity is there in secondary school to actually read? You are told to read this paragraph, write the answer to these 5 questions. You have to, actually, again, if we go back to more coursework or project-based, where you have to go do your own research, that no one's going to do the same research. If I ask you 5 to do a project, you're going to do 5 different projects. You're going to come back with 5 different bits of information that the others haven't found, and that will inspire each of you going, oh, missed that. Like Helen looking up Van der Graaf Generator Band and things like that. But it's that sort of stuff, that random knowledge that comes from people, that your own experience. That's what we should be. Because again, as soon as you start doing that, and everyone's work is different, And that's good. Not everyone's work should look identical. That's bad.
Yes.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer in research work. What I've seen at kind of further education level, what often happens now is if you ask them to go and research, they will look up things on websites, which is brilliant. But instead of
No,
reading
yeah.
it and putting it in their own words, they copy and paste. They've learned nothing, they've read nothing. Whereas if they have that skill of reading and that enjoyment, they would actually read what they find,
digest it,
get rid of the stuff that's rubbish, put it in their own words and use it. But we're not developing that skill. It seems like a lot of secondary schools aren't really teaching children how to research and interpret. So then when they get to sixth form college, they will go onto a website, copy and paste. Thankfully, if the establishment has got something like Turnitin, you can see exactly where it's come from and you can have a chat with them. But if they were taught earlier how to do that in an effective way and use their reading skills, it would be far better.
My daughter is doing psychology and sociology at A level. She's in her first year, so she's 2 months in. She did them at GCSE, so she's kind of coasting because it's like, I've done this already. Hey, but she's being taught how to read something and highlight, pull out that key information using different color heighters for different reasons. And she found it really painful, I think. Why am I doing this? And I'm like, well, yeah, you know this topic because you've done it before, but actually if it's a new topic, it's going to help you, as Helen was saying earlier, when it's hidden in the question, when it's hidden in that book, what's the important bit? When I read between the lines, that's what she's being taught. Again, that's not knowledge, that's a skill which she can take and apply to any bit of research she's going to read. And I think we just need to really focus on, yes, knowledge is great, but I remember my parents telling me, you're not going to walk around with a calculator in your back pocket. Oh, yes, you are. And not only that, with ChatGPT now on your phone, you can now just sit there and have a conversation with someone in a different language and it will do the live translation.
Bonkers.
And yes, there are still going to be needs for languages. There are still going to be needs for those GCSEs. But with technology, we have to sit there and go, do we need that? And somebody will probably say, actually, if you learn a different language, it changes the way your mind thinks. And there are so many reasons for doing stuff and learning stuff. But we do have to take into account the way the world is going. And any bit of knowledge I need, hey, Alexa,
On the
I have
interweb.
I will ask this. I can shout this. I can type this in. I will get the knowledge. I need to know if I can trust it. That's the first bit. That information being given to me by an answer. Can I trust it? Do I have those skills? And also putting that information together. All that sort of stuff to me, I think the young generations lack. Because we came from all of us came from an era of you had to make do. You had to wait X amount from, if it came in the cinema and you missed it, it was like 3 months. You had no choice of waiting. Whatever was going on in the world of music, you had to wait for the next week's smash hits. Whatever your interest was, it was like, oh, there's a new annual catalogue out. What's new? Yeah. Or you had all these newsletters just to keep up, but it was like a month between them. And you had to make do and you were bored. And Fintan says, we'll say it's a great thing about being bored. You learn something to do something and fill your time. The world is changing and the way we teach and the way we learn and the skills our children need are not the same ones we needed.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds quite a
wrap it up.
place to pause. We could go on all day.
We could, but I am going to wrap it up. We've gone for just over the hour, and it has literally been like herding kittens arguing about chemistry, physics, and biology, and even stuff chucking in sociology. And again, growth mindset. Years ago, you would have gone, "Oh, I'm a rocket. I can't do sociology," but you can. You can.
Dr.
It's just
Ross, never forget.
so. As I always do, I'll be sharing everyone's contact details. It'll be a very long show notes for everyone's contact details and information and websites and all the stuff they're doing. And as always, you'll find those in the show notes wherever you listen to the podcast or on the SENDcast website. So thank you for listening to the show. If you haven't subscribed already, click on that subscribe button. You can follow us on social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky, probably another one somewhere, lost track. We're on all over them. So you can follow us, share your messages, give feedback, anything you want. And if you're looking for a simple, secure way to capture and share evidence of learning, or a way to capture pupil voice, a way to celebrate and share achievements, or just a simple, safe way to communicate with parents, you need to have a look at EverSense. EverSense is our evidence system and parental engagement system. To find out more about EverSense, visit the B Square website. You can also find out online training, our CPD, read our blog, watch our webinars, like what is good progress for people with SEND. And you'll find a link to the website and a link to book a meeting with me in the show notes so I can take you through EverSense and answer any questions you have. So thank you for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the SENDcast. It's goodbye from me.
Thank you very much. Goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you very much for having us. Goodbye, everyone. Take care.
Yeah, goodbye from me.
Now, wasn't that so well done? No one talking to each other. It's like I organised it all before.
I wanted to add in, but thought I shouldn't talk for ages again. I wanted to add in that you are a role model for how to successfully coordinate neurodivergent individuals and bring out something beautiful. So thank you, Dale.
Cool. I haven't stopped recording yet, so that's going to go in the podcast. Bye, everyone.
Oh, lovely.